All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us for this 2015 tax season TSG software training. My name is Kevin. I'll be your instructor. If you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and type them in there in the little box. I want to go ahead and introduce you guys to TSG. We are a full service tax service provider. We have many different services that we provide to tax offices and tax professionals as yourselves. Um, Basically what we do is we try to address the full spectrum of issues that tax preparers and tax professionals may encounter. We do have our own software here. It's TSG 2015 edition, which is what I'm showing here on my screen. We also offer many value-added services such as roadside for your clients. We also offer Affordable Care Act enrollment, where you can provide your clients with a way to go ahead and enroll them into the Affordable Care Act. We also provide immigration doc prep services. So if you know any of your clients that are interested in any kind of immigration services, we give you the opportunity to offer that to your clients as well. We offer a lot of different things in the realm of preparing the taxes, such as EIC due diligence packets, different things that will help you and guide you along the way, whether you're a brand new preparer who's never done it before or you've been in the business for many, many years. We do have a very experienced team of dedicated tax professionals at your disposal. So any questions or concerns or anything like that will always be here. We have a very experienced and very savvy technical support team as well to help guide you on your way. So let's go ahead and get started. Three things that you need to learn about this program today. It is a forms-based software, so it does not control you. You control the software. It treats you like the tax professional that you know and that we know that you are. And it doesn't restrict you. It doesn't make you go on its terms. You can provide any kind of information that you like to the software in whatever order that you like, and it just makes the flow a lot easier. There's a lot more freedom and a lot more, I guess, wiggle room, you can say, into actually learning the software and getting to know the software and preparing the taxes in the way that you're comfortable. There's also something called an active window at the bottom, and I'll get into that. That's probably one of the biggest tools that you'll be using, and also how to do depreciation. Hands down, this program here, our program TSG, provides the easiest way to do depreciation in the industry, hands down. And I'll show you guys just how simple that is. Um, let's go ahead and get started here. What we're looking at right here when you launch the program is what's known as the work in progress summary. This is your hub. This is going to show you absolutely everything that's going on in your office in a real-time basis. So right now, I've only got 2 returns loaded into the software. Now, later on in the season, you guys might have a few hundred, a few thousand returns. The good thing about this software is that it will load 1 return and 100,000 returns in the exact same time. So there is no lag. We've stress tested over 100,000 returns, and we have not experienced any lag or any crashes. Other softwares out there, the more returns that you load on there, the slower it gets. That is not the case with our software. We've stress tested it with over 100,000 returns. Like I said, I've yet to meet a single office to prepare 100,000 returns, but in the case that they are that successful, the software will be more than happy to oblige them and not slow them down in their process. So let's go ahead and start off with the menu bar. This right here is the menu bar. Okay. Now this is going to change as you go along the program. Every window that you go into, this will change and address whatever needs you may have in that section of the software. So here we have our databases. All right. The software is very intuitive. As you go along and start adding different things like zip codes or other things such as bank routing numbers, occupations, things of that nature, when you're entering the client's information, the software will remember those things. So, for instance, if you have a W-2 and you have a lot of different clients that come from the same office or the same employer, as you begin to enter in that EIN number, it will automatically suggest a previously used EIN number, so that all you have to do is go ahead and hit enter, and that will finish off everything else: the EIN number, the employer name, the address information, all of that. So it does save a lot of time. Also, zip codes, you don't have to sit there and put city, state, and zip. You just plug in the zip code and it'll auto-populate the city and the state. So it is a very intuitive program. Um, we have setup here, which is an administrative tool. This usually we give authorization only to the administrator. Obviously, you guys have your own office setup, so you know who should have access to this and who shouldn't. You can set up all of those authorizations here with the login accounts. And basically, what this does, it will allow you to set the authorization level to some presets here, and you can go ahead and edit those. Usually we'll do that when we do your onboarding. We'll ask you how you want that set up, and we'll go ahead and do it so that when you install the actual software, everything is already set up for you. And we do all the legwork for you. So all you have to do is install a program and start getting those taxes prepared. So this is the menu bar here. Okay, we also have the reports. We have probably the most intuitive reporting in the market right now. If you can enter in any information on a tax return, it will show up on a report, and you can base reports off of that, which is also here on the quick reports. I don't have any quick reports set up here, but later on in the demonstration, I'll go ahead and show you how you can customize this so that you have reports here in the work in progress summary, and all you have to do is click on that and it'll go ahead and run that report. Those are preset reports that you guys can customize and add onto that screen. Another thing I want you guys to look at is this toolbar right here. So we have the menu bar up here, and then we have the toolbar right here. Now this toolbar also changes based on where you are in the software. For instance, right now we've only got about 6 options here in the toolbar. But once we go into a return, I'll show you now. Right when we go into the search screen, you see now we have a couple more, which will take us back to the work in progress screen. And when I enter into a tax return, you can see that we have a lot more options here. Basically because these options are needed in the tax return, but not so much when you're in the search bar. Okay, so this also changes based on where you are in the software, and we'll go into that a little bit further when we go into an actual tax return. Also, I want to show you guys this information bar here. This is a very important information bar, the black bar right here in the middle. All right, one of the most important things is going to show you what version you're running. All right, so right now I'm running version 2015.001. Right now we are up to version 5. All right, so this would require a software update. All you would have to do is go ahead and transmit. All right, when you transmit, it's going to download all of those updates, and it's actually very simple. Anytime that you transmit, if there's an update that needs to be added, it will show you right here in the software updates bar in the line here in the other items, and I'll give you guys an example of that now once this is done transmitting. So this is done here, and now you see here we have a few updates that we need to go ahead and do. All right, I won't do those right now, but just so that you guys see how simple it is to go ahead and download those updates, you just go ahead and transmit. Every single time that you transmit, which some offices transmit multiple times per day, other offices just like to transmit at the end of the day so you can send all of that to the IRS. But every time that you do transmit, if there are any updates for the software, it'll go ahead and show up right here. So this, again, is going to show you what version you're running. If you call technical support and you have some kind of an issue, the first question we'll usually ask you is what version of the software you're running, and you can find that right here throughout the entire software. This rarely changes throughout the software. It's going to show you the version here as well as the tax year, what year you're preparing the taxes for. It will show you your login ID right here. If you would like to log out, it's always going to display your login ID over on this side, and of course your user ID. Your user ID is very important because that's how we at technical support can identify you. So if we ever ask you for your user ID, you'll be able to find it right here in the top left corner of the screen. So that is basically what you need to know here for the menu bar your toolbar, and your information bar. And these will always be displayed here in the on the top of the screen. Now, like I said, this does change throughout the software, but it's always going to remain here in the same spot. The work in progress screen. Work in progress screen, as I mentioned before, is basically it represents the state of your business at any given time. You can see how many returns you have, if you have any checks that need to be printed. You can also see if there's any rejections, which from what I've heard from many preparers is fantastic, because there's other softwares that if there's any kind of rejection, you'd actually have to go into your email and check your email, or maybe even run a report in order to see what kind of rejections came back. Here, as soon as you log in, it's going to show you if you do have any rejects. And if there are any rejects, it'll pop up with the amount of rejects here, similar to how many returns. And you can just go ahead and click on that. It'll populate all the rejections and why they were rejected. And you can actually access each individual return in that list and go ahead and address those issues right from the work in progress screen. So that, from what I've heard from different preparers, that's actually a very big perk on the software, one of their favorite features. Now, each one of these sections, you'll notice there's a couple of different sections. Okay, I like to refer to these sections as different queues. Here you have your tax return queue, so it's going to show you how many taxes or how many returns you actually have in the software at the time. Your status summary list. This is going to show you what the status is of all the returns that you actually have in the system. So right here I have loaded one e-file return, which means that it has not been transmitted yet. And I also have one paper return. The paper return basically does not have the 8879, so it will not be e-filed. And then if I had any acknowledged, it would show the acknowledged returns and how many I have there, how many rejected returns I have. This is a very helpful tool if you want to see where you are during the year and how many returns you have and what the status is on those returns. Management dashboard, which is a great tool. This we're gonna spend about 30 minutes just on management dashboard a little bit later on. This is probably the last thing I'm going to be talking about today, simply because it's mainly used for anyone who has a multiple office operation going on. So if you guys are just a single office or single preparer, you don't have to stay until the very end. But once we go into management dashboard, there's a lot to talk about. So if you guys do want to go ahead and sit through that, I would highly recommend it, because one day you may have multiple offices, which is what I would hope for everybody here. And this is a very useful tool for that. Trading returns is actually a very neat little feature here. Trading returns is identical to the actual software itself in respect to adding returns and preparing returns. But if you have a new preparer or somebody that you're training or somebody that's not familiar with the software, you can go ahead and have them go into training returns. And when they go into training returns, anything that they do here will not affect the software as far as your actual returns. These would be where the actual returns are. So if you're kind of new to the software, or you have somebody who's kind of new to tax preparation, you can have them go into training returns, and they can do anything and everything that they want in here. It won't affect you. It won't affect their PTIN or your EFIN or anything of that nature. It's all basically just practice. That's a neat little feature. Then we have the printing queue. If you have any checks that need to be printed, it will show it right here. So every morning when you log in, if the bank has sent you any checks that you need to be printed, you'll see that right here in real time. Also, tax returns. You can either print the tax return at the time of preparation to go ahead and give to your client, excuse me, or you can put it in a printing queue if you prefer to keep your files maybe in a storage, locked away for those 7 years to keep a paper copy of all your returns. You can queue them up, and then it'll tell you how many of those tax returns are in the printing queue, and you can print those out right from here. Now, pro forma, this is basically a carry forward from the previous year. If you have any carry forward information that needs to be printed, you'll find that right here. Federal acknowledgement letters, if you have any of those that you put into the printing queue, as well as state acknowledgement letters that will show you how many are here waiting to be printed, and then you can access those as well. Software updates, we kind of touched on that before. Now, the software updates, when you transmit, if there are any updates that need to be applied, they're going to show up right here in this section. And as you saw, I just went ahead and clicked on that, and it's going to show me all these different software updates that need to be applied. One of these is the printing package, which was just released about 2 days ago. So you are now able to print full returns and give those copies to your clients, as long as there's no documents missing. Usually for self-employed, at this point, for self-employeds, or people who have their own businesses or corporations, if they've already went ahead and prepared the tax return, then you can start printing as of today. Secure email. If we at technical support need to send you any kind of secure email or a message, you'd be able to access that here. Okay, and bulletins is similar to that. It's basically different little newsletters that we have going out to everybody to advise you of different updates. Today's appointments. This is also something that I've heard a lot of good things about, a lot of good feedback from the preparers. Not everybody prepares taxes the same way. Everybody has different processes in their office. Some people are sole preparers and they're the only one that work in that office, and they do everything. They take appointments, they process the file, they prepare the file, they make sure that everything is correct, they provide the quality control, and they're basically a one-man show or one-woman show. And this is a great option for the sole preparer or the office that has different tiers to the preparation process. If they have an office where they have a processor in the front, which inputs the information, does all the data entry, and then once that data is entered, then they go back to the preparer. The preparer goes ahead and prepares a tax return, and then they'll send it back to a quality control type individual, which would make sure that everything is included in that return before it goes out. Either way, this is a really good tool because any kind of appointments that you need to make, you can make right in the software. So if you do have a processor or a receptionist or a different preparer, however you do your process in your office, this is a great tool because all they need to learn is just this one software. This one tool will allow them to replace any other kind of appointment system or spreadsheet or anything of that nature, and everything is right in the software. You never actually have to leave the software. So if somebody calls in and says they want an appointment for Friday, right, go ahead and click on that, hit add appointment, and all we have to do is put in their name, phone number, all right, and if they have a specific preparer that they would like to see, you can pull this down. You'll get this from your preparer database, and you can go ahead and select the preparer they would like to see. If you want to go ahead and put it all the rest of this information, you can. And then when we hit save, you'll see the appointment comes up right there. All right. Now, let's say they call in and they want to change their appointment. Right now, it's defaulted to the current time for the appointment. So if they want to go ahead and change it, just double click. And let's say they said they wanted it for noon, 12 noon. We can go and change that, then it'll show up. So this is, again, from what I've heard from feedback from a lot of preparers, this is a very good tool to have in your office. Backup returns. If you have any returns that you would like to back up or that need to be backed up, I'll show you there how many returns have yet to be backed up. And TextLink Plus, this is probably one of my favorite features in the software, where you actually have the ability to send text messages right from the software to your clients. So if you have somebody, let's say they need to pick up a check, that you can see here, okay, when they pull up those checks, you can actually go into that client's return and send them a text message saying your check is here. You can come by to pick it up between the hours of 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. or whatever your hours are, and send them that text message. It's a great way to keep in touch with your clients. Also, if you want to just send them happy holidays text messages, or maybe like a happy birthday text message. It's just a good way to to close the gap between your clients and keep you guys in touch during the whole year. Or just a really good tool to let them, to just kind of remind them if they need to bring in any kind of documents, like if they come in to prepare with a check stub and you're waiting on their W-2, you can send them a text message reminding them to go ahead and bring in all that documentation. So that's the other items queue here. Now we have our transmit queue. This one's pretty straightforward. This one shows if there's any returns or anything that needs to be transmitted. It'll show up right here. Okay, anything in your queue, in your transmit queue, which is right here, that will show up right here, so you can transmit that to central site. And if there's any updates to be applied, again, that'll show up over here. If you need to recover anything from the archive, that's more of a back-end tool. If maybe you have a preparer that accidentally deleted a return, which hopefully doesn't ever happen in your offices, but if it does, we can send you that return from the back end, and you can recover it and add it back into your pipeline there. So that's a really neat tool. The rejections queue here, as I said before, if you have any federal rejections, state rejections, any refused returns, they'll show up right here, and you can address them right in their queue. So that is the work in progress summary. Like I said, it's basically representing the state of your business at any given time. It's basically like your book. So your book of business, the status of all the returns. You also have the management dashboard. There's a lot of different things that you can do from here, but this is a screen that you will always see as soon as you log in. So that is basically what you need to know about that work in progress screen. Now what we're going to go ahead and do is start a return. It's a very simple process with this program, simply because, like I had mentioned before, it's a forms-based software. So there's no little box that tells you what you have to ask or a set procedure to preparing the return. Everybody has a different way of preparing a return. Everybody has their own process or different procedures. So this program really allows you the freedom to prepare the return however you see fit, however you see as the most diligent way or the most effective way to prepare the return. So let's go ahead and jump right into that. So from the work in progress screen, there's a couple of different ways to get to that screen. If you want to jump right into it, in the toolbar here, you have the add new return button. So you can add a new return, okay, and it's going to ask you to verify the social security number twice. Okay, so you can do it that way if you want to go right into right from the work in progress screen. Another way that you can do it is by hitting select a return, which will show you your returns that you have already submitted or inputted into the system, or you can look up a return. So there's a lot of different ways that you can start a new return. So for now, let's just go ahead and look up a return. Now, right now, there's nothing in here because I haven't actually searched for anything yet. Now, this search bar is new and improved for this year. We've added the date range filter. So not only can you search by last name or social security number, you can also search for last name or social security number based on a date range. So if you want to see a certain, let's say somebody by the last name of Martinez, but you know you have about 50 Martinez's in your office, but you want to search for the Martinez that you did yesterday, you can go ahead and put the date range in here from January 6th to January 7th, and it'll show it'll show you only the Martinez's that you did during that date range. Now, in addition to that, you can also search by the date that it was created. If there was a state return attached to that tax return, by EFIN, if you have multiple EFINs, site ID, preparer ID, spouse's last name, home phone number, by the user status, which we'll go over also later on. There's a lot of different search options here. So let's say you want to you have a big client base in Georgia, and you want to see all those clients that you did in Georgia. You would just look for the attached state, and you would just go ahead and put in Georgia there, and all your Georgia clients will come up. So there's a lot of different options here for searching and looking up different returns. So for now, let's go ahead and just jump right in and start up on a return. All right, so let's go ahead and start on this return. All right, so again, it's going to ask you to put in that social security number twice just to make sure that you're not putting in any kind of errors or typos in the social security number. So we'll go ahead and start that. Now, another thing which I've been told is great from the feedback I've had from the preparers is that in this software, even with that double verification for the social security number, if you still managed to get that social wrong, you don't have to start a completely different return like some softwares make you. Here, since we know that you guys are tax professionals, we treat you guys like tax professionals, and sometimes tax professionals make a mistake. So in this case, if you made a mistake in the social, all you have to do is correct that mistake, and you don't have to go in and make a new return and delete this return, and then you have this here hanging, all because of one single number. So that's also a nice little feature that we have here. So let's go ahead and get this started. So we have the social security number here, which we inputted already, and now we're going to go ahead and put the date of birth. All right, and it's going to take you to the next field that needs to be entered automatically by hitting enter or tab. You can also go around and select which field you would like to enter. So let's go ahead and put, let's see here, taxpayer name, middle initial. Okay. Now, this box right here, it doesn't necessarily have a label or something marking what this box is for. Now, this is why I want to bring you guys, this is the point when I want to bring you guys down to the active window and introduce you to the active window. The active window is what I like to call the cheat sheet. At any point in time during the software, during the preparation of the taxes, if you have any kind of questions or you're not sure about something or what's supposed to go in that box, you can come right down here into the active window. That's right here. Right, and that's going to be there for the entire time of the return. And here it's going to tell you what is supposed to go in that selected area. So here you have your taxpayer's name, suffix. So it'll be junior, senior, the second, the third, etc. And it'll actually even give you some choices. All right, so these are the different suffixes that are accepted by the IRS. Okay, and you can just go ahead and put that in there. So we'll just we'll put here John Jones Jr. here. Okay. And then you also have your occupation. All right, so if we come down here to the active window, we'll see here this is the taxpayer's occupation. It's pretty self-explanatory from here, but you also have a couple choices here. Now, this I don't have a database set up for this one. These are just the ones that come in with the software pre-done. But if you do have a database, this does build a database based on your entries from different taxpayers that you go and prepare their taxes. Every time you put an occupation there, it'll be added onto your database. All right, so let's just say John is a professional taxpayer here. Okay, here, if John is a dependent for another taxpayer, then we would mark this box. Your enter X if taxpayer claimed as dependent on another return, but we're going to say that John is independent. All right, and then it's going to ask you if he is blind or disabled. You would mark that there. And then we have the home phone number, the work phone number, and the cell phone number. Now the cell phone number is probably the most important of the three, mainly because a lot of people nowadays don't have home phone numbers. They mainly just go off of their cell phone number. So if you do put in at least one phone number on here, which I always recommend, it would be that cell phone number, because that will also, allow you to send them that text message straight from the software. So let's go ahead and plug in a cell phone number there. All right, and their email address. Now this year we've added the ability to actually send out emails of the tax return itself to the client directly from the software. So this is also a nice little feature here. You want to go ahead and try and get everybody's email address just so you can build up that database. And if you want to start maybe like a newsletter or something of that sort, it's always nice to have that in the software. So we'll go ahead and add that in there. And then here, this box is going to ask you if the customer agrees to receive text messages. Of course, you want to have their authorization to go ahead and send them the text messages. Usually, they're not too complacent about that. They'll be more than happy to receive text messages from you just in case their check is ready or they have any kind of documentation that's missing. It's always nice to have that. And then here, you would put in what cell phone carrier they have. So if we come down here to the active window, you're going to see you have a couple of choices. Okay, and let's just say that this particular client has AT&T. All right, and preferred contact, however they would like to be contacted. We'll say that this person uses their cell phone a lot, so that'll be their preferred contact there, as well as preferred language. If you have some multilingual client base, then um, they'd rather be contacted in Spanish or English. However they prefer. In this case, we'll put English here. And these are all optional. You don't necessarily have to put these in. It's just a good tool, especially to build up your database. All right, now, as I mentioned before, the software is very intuitive and will not lead you to any areas or any fields where it's not necessary to put in any information. So if we put in here that John is single, which as you can see here is the number 1, 2 would be married, filing jointly, so on and so forth. We're going to go ahead and put in that he's single, and as soon as I hit enter, it's going to skip the spouse information and go straight into the address. So we'll go ahead and plug in the address. And as soon as I hit enter, it's going to take me to an apartment number. We'll say it's apartment 1, and then it's going to take me straight into the zip code. Now, again, when you plug in the zip code, it's not going to make you put in the city or the state because it will automatically recognize the zip code and fill that in for you. And this field here is also a database field. So now that I've entered that in, it's building my database as I go. So every single time that you have a different zip code that you plug in there, it's gonna keep on building that database. And this carries forward year to year. So all of your clients that come back the next year, you're not going to need to keep putting in all that information because it's going to remember what you put into that database. That also goes for bank name and the associated the routing numbers that are associated with those banks. So that's also a really nice tool because a lot of people have their account numbers, not so many of them have that routing number. So that's also a nice tool. And this is used solely for direct deposit or direct debit from the IRS. And all of this information is encrypted. So all of it is safe and put away and very secure. We also have a referral program with the software. So you have a couple of different ways that you can set up your referrals: advertising, word of mouth, flyer, internet. If you sent out a mailer, or if maybe you sent out a radio ad, you can have that as part of your information sheet, and you can put that in there to see what kind of marketing tools are best working for you in your office. So you can put that in there also. And we also have an option here for Call a Doctor Plus. This is a program where they would have your clients would have access to a physician 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And this is most simply done with, it's best done with your bank product clients, because then they'll just deduct that $199.95 right out of the return, and they'll have that membership for the entire year. So if they want to opt into that, they can. If not, you go ahead and hit no. And you put in the gender if you wish to go ahead and opt into that. Also, we have taxpayer male or female up here next to each of the taxpayer and spouse. So it's not a mandatory field, but if you wish, you can go ahead and put that in there. This is a new section. That's another update for 2015, where it asks you about their health coverage, and that's simply because of the Affordable Care Act laws that are now in place. It will impact their tax return. I'm sure that all of you guys have heard about this one way or another, which is another reason why we offer our clients the opportunity to offer their excuse me, their clients Affordable Care Act, because we know how it will impact their tax returns. If they go to a mall and sign up at a kiosk and that person does it incorrectly, and then at the end of the year they end up owing back a large chunk of subsidy money that they were not supposed to get or they're not qualified to get, they're going to be looking at you saying, "Where's the rest of my refund?" And then you're going to have to spend all that extra time explaining to that client why it is that their refund is $700, $800, $1,000 short. So it's always a good way to generate a little bit extra revenue with the Affordable Care Act offering Obamacare, as it's widely known, um, and making sure that they do it correctly so that when they come do their taxes, they already know what to expect. So here it's going to ask you a couple different questions. If they receive health coverage through their employer for the entire year, or if they received it through Medicaid. Also asks you if they purchase private health insurance, not through the marketplace, or marketplace insurance through the Affordable Care Act, or if any or everyone on the tax return, including taxpayer or dependents, did not have insurance. Okay, if they did not have insurance, and then you would have to fill out those additional forms. I believe it's the 8962 and the 8965, either for the waiver or the actual penalty. Um, of the uh, of the Affordable Care Act for the shared responsibility. Um, so this is that section that you would fill out here. For this, just to make it a little bit simpler, we'll go ahead and hit X on the employer coverage. Okay. Now here it's going to ask you for some dependents. If John had any dependents, then we're going to go ahead and plug them in here. So we're going to say he has a daughter, Jill. And notice, as soon as I put that J in, it recognizes the taxpayer's last name and plugs it in automatically there for you, just to make it a little bit easier. We're going to go ahead and put in her birth date. All right, and then we'll go ahead and plug in her social. All right, now relationship. It's pretty straightforward for most of the relationships. Daughter, okay, or son, or grandchild. If you ever get stuck, like let's say if you try and put father, and it doesn't let you, you can always come down here to your choices in your active window. I'm going to keep referring to this active window throughout the presentation simply because it's a very, very useful tool. If you ever get stuck on something or you're not exactly sure, we make it as frustration free as possible by having many different ways for you to try and figure out what you're supposed to go ahead and input in these fields with the active window. So we come over here to choices, and we'll see here, these are all the different choices here. And in this case, instead of father or mother, we would go ahead and put parent. So there's a couple of different ways to get to where you're trying to go. So for now, we'll go ahead and put in Jill as his daughter, right? And this simply asks you how many months the dependent lived with the taxpayer. So we'll say she lived with him for the entire year. And this is going to ask you the kind of dependent that she is now. It's always going to default to 1, which is a child that lived with the taxpayer, or dependent that lived with the taxpayer. Dependent that did not live with the taxpayer could be maybe their parents. That's another option right here, dependent taxpayer's parent or other dependents. So there's a couple different options here. So I was going to say here, dependent that live with the taxpayer. Now this E is going to automatically populate as soon as the software recognizes that Jill qualifies for the earned income credit. That's what that box is right there, the earned income credit. So you have eligible, which is E, S for student, which you would use if Jill was older than 23. And we'll say that Jill is 22. Now you're going to notice that that E does not populate automatically. Now you're going to have to specify that Jill is a student for her to be eligible for the earned income credit. But if Jill is under the age of 18, then it's going to automatically go ahead and populate that she's eligible. Okay, and then this is going to automatically populate if they're eligible for the child tax credit if they're younger than the age of 16. All right, and then there's one more here. If the dependent had any kind of dependent care or daycare services that the taxpayer paid for during the year, you can go ahead and hit an X right here, and it'll auto-populate the 2441. In this case, Jill is over the age of 13, so she wouldn't qualify for that. All right, and this is just for state use. All right, so that's basically your dependent screen right here. Now you also have your non-dependents. Okay, a non-dependent is basically a dependent where maybe in a divorce decree, the parents agreed that one parent will get the child tax credit and the exemption, and the other parent would get the earned income credit portion of it. This software actually allows you to input that and oblige your clients with the ability to do that. So if we want Jill here to give her father, John, the child tax credit and the exemption, we would just go ahead and take off the EIC. And then when Jill's other parent comes around, we'll just put her here as a non-dependent purely for EIC purposes. She will not get the exemption or the child tax credit. So that's a nice little feature that'll accommodate those kinds of clients if you so happen to come across them. All right. So this is your client data screen. Okay, this is where you're going to put in most of the information that you collect from the client. All right. The client data sheet has, as you see, the taxpayer information, the spouse information, the address, bank account information, referrals, Affordable Care Act, and dependents. Now this is what I recommend that everyone go ahead and fill out first. When they're beginning the return, when they're starting the return, you can go ahead and fill this out first before you do anything else, because this is where the program is going to pull most of the information from. If you notice over here in that toolbar that I was talking about, this has now got a lot more different tools that you can use. Okay, one of them being notes, which is a very big one, especially if you're concerned about an earned income credit audit or the due diligence requirement from the IRS. You can go ahead and open here, and then we're going to add a new note. And you can go ahead and basically put question and answer format. And then you can go ahead and document the answers. Okay, and that's all saved in each file. So this is a very good way for a tax preparer to make sure that they're covered with their due diligence requirement. We also offer an EIC due diligence packet, which you can refer back to one of your account executives in regards to that. That'll give you a lot of different tools and a lot of different forms for the client to fill out. That is just more security on your end to make sure that you cover yourself for your due diligence requirements. And you can refer back to one of your account executives for that. More details on that. So this is the client data screen. Now, the entire portion of the entire return can be accessed from here, from your attached forms window. Okay, some people may refer to this as their form tree, but this is going to show every single form that is attached onto the return. Now, you have your general tab, which is going to show really our tools as preparers that we're going to use mostly, such as the information and the status of the return. So if you were to transmit this return, it will show you the transmit date as well as the date that it was acknowledged. If there is a state filing, it'll show you the same information right here, when it was transmitted and the date that it was acknowledged. The real nice thing about this screen here is your user status code, which now for 2015, we went ahead and added right on the client data screen. Now, user status codes are codes that you guys as clients customize based on however your process works. Now, I think we have a couple here preloaded. No, I haven't preloaded any here. But you can add user status codes by coming up here to database. And all the way in the bottom, you're going to see here user status codes. Now, a couple that I like to use would be ready, which is right here, ready to transmit. Another one would be W2 or 1099, okay, which basically means that we are missing W2 or 1099. And one that we'll see a lot this year, which I'll recommend everybody to go ahead and put in, is 1095. 1095 is the form that your clients will be receiving from the marketplace if they did have any kind of marketplace coverage. If they received any kind of subsidy from the government or they had marketplace coverage and they do not include that 1095 form in the return, or the I believe it's the 8695 form or 8965, their return will not get funded. So this is a very important point that you need to make to your clients, and also something that you definitely want to have a process for. And this will pretty much take care of that entire process for you. So anybody who's missing the 1095, even though they have their return completed, their W-2, all of their forms and their EIC due diligence, everything is done. If they're missing this form, it's not a very good idea to go ahead and transmit that return yet. So this is how you add your status codes here. So now when we come over here to your user status and we select our choices, you're going to see that database that we've just created. So we're going to say that John, since he had his employer coverage for the healthcare, he's ready to go. All right, now this is usually the last step once you're done with the return, to use that status code. But this is a very, very good tool to run some reports and to see where you are and what's pending, what's hanging, why a return has yet to be sent to the IRS, if anything's missing from that return. So that's a good tool. And we've added that right up on top of the client data screen this year. So you have your user status right here, and you have your state filing return here. Your financial product, if they did opt into a bank product, it's going to show you all that information here. It's going to show you the preparer fee. It's also going to show the preparer fee, and it's also going to show you if they added Call a Doctor Plus, Service Bureau fee, tech fee, everything here that's incorporated with the bank product is going to show up here. Then we have our tax summary. The tax summary is just going to show simply a summary of everything that's showing up on the tax return, and that you can see here. You can have your invoice, which is going to show all of your preparer fees. If you have a discount that you want to go ahead and add onto that fee, you may. And it's going to show you how they paid. This is really, really useful when you're running your reports. As I mentioned before, this program is very intuitive, and it's kind of all-encompassing in the way that you never have to use anything else for your tax preparation business. Simply put, you can run reports, financial reports, summary reports, client reports. All of this can be run right from the software. So if you're going to take a payment, you come right up here to this payment button up on the toolbar. You're going to put in your payment method. Say they paid cash, and the amount that they paid. And then when you go ahead and save that, it's going to show up right here. And then you can actually run a report off of all the payments that you've taken for that day, for that week, for that month, for that preparer, that individual preparer, how many payments that preparer has made. There's a lot of different reports that you can run off of this, but this is a really nice tool that we have here for you guys, is how to take payments here right on the invoice. And when you print out the invoice, it's going to show that payment on the invoice, so you can reconcile everything at the end of the day. If you have any notes, it's going to show up here. So you can access that either here on the forms tree or the attached forms window, or from here in the notes button. You're also going to have your document archive. Now, this is a great tool when it comes to your due diligence and your requirements for keeping documents. No longer will any of you have to scan into a folder on your computer and rename files, or have to search through your documents or your archives, or even making copies and having to file them away in a storage. The document archive is that storage, and it's specific to each file. So in this document archive, if I need to scan a document, I can scan it on my flatbed, and when I scan that, I can just go ahead and browse through the computer and upload it right into the software. Or if you have one of our scanners, our 2D barcode scanners, you can scan it using that. And just go ahead and take a photo of it using that scanner and save it right into the software. All right, and here's where you would import if you use an external scanner. You can go ahead and just browse through there, and you'll be able to search for that document and go ahead and attach that document right into the software. And then whenever you need to access those documents, you would simply double click and that document would open up right into the software, excuse me. And all you have to do is go into John's file. You go into John's file, you click on Document Archive, and there you have all of his information, his W-2s, his IDs, birth certificate for the dependent, any kind of due diligence forms or evidence that you would need to comply with the IRS requirements. Will be right here in the Document Archive. Depreciation, which now for 2015 we've also added right here into the forms tree, can be added right here, and I'll show you guys that a little later on. An event log, which is a very nice tool to have when you have multiple preparers. You can see what has happened in this return as the changes have been made. So an example here, if somebody were to come in and change that social security number, it'll show you here that it was changed from 3434 excuse me, to 3435, and it'll show you the login ID of the user that went ahead and made that change. If it gets transmitted, if it's edited, or if anything is added or deleted or anything from the return, it's going to show up right here in the event log. So that's a nice tool here to have. And then if you also have any kind of forms that you scanned using that barcode scanner, those will be recorded here. All of the information that was scanned and imported is going to show up right here as well. And also, if you've sent out any text messages to this client, any kind of contact history through the software is going to show up right here in that TextLink Plus messaging toolbar right there. So if maybe you sent out a text message to that client saying your check is ready, and they replied saying I'm on my way or I'll be there next week, you have a history of all of that, including inbound text messages. When you go ahead and opt into that TextLink Plus, it will record outbound and inbound text messages if they reply. So that's your general tab here on the attached forms. So this is what we're going to use as preparers or administrators when preparing the return. These are our tools that'll guide us and show us everything that we need to know, all the information that we need to know during the return process and even after the return process. That'll take us to our federal section. All this is going to do is show us the different forms that have been attached or associated with the tax return. And this is fairly simple. If we need to add a form, all we have to do is come right up here to our toolbar, and we're going to hit Add Form. Now, when this window comes up, you have a couple of different ways to add this form. If you already know the name of the form, such as a 2441, okay, it's going to take you right to that form. Or, let's say, a 5695. Okay, usually after about a month into the season, we're pretty well versed and refreshed on the names of all these forms. But let's say it's January 5th, and you're a little rusty. You haven't prepared a tax return in about 8 months, and you know that they need the residential energy credit. So what you're going to do is come right up here to this next tab, the index tab, and you're going to type in a description of the form. And there it is, residential energy credit, form 5695. So if you just need a description of the form, you can go ahead and come to the index tab and type it up right there. Or if you already know the name of the form, you can just plug it in and it'll take you right to that form. So for now, let's go ahead and add a W-2. Now, if you notice, let me close this. The very first form that it defaults to when you add a form is the most common used form in the tax preparation world, which is the W-2. It's going to take you right over to the W-2. So go ahead and add that. So let's go ahead and plug in this W-2. All right, EIN number, name of the corporation. And now if you notice, when I hit enter, it skipped this line. This line is if you have an agent in care of addressee. Sometimes they'll have that on the W-2, but for the most part, it's going to require the name of the company and the address. I hit enter again, straight to the zip code. Okay, and again, it auto-populated there. And when I hit enter, notice it didn't ask me for any of the employee name or information, because when I inputted it in the information sheet or in the client data sheet, it automatically carried that over. So that's another nice way to save you time. So right when I hit enter, it's going to ask me for the wages. Now this is what's known as a double blind, double entry validation, just to make sure that you've put in the correct number. It's going to ask for it again. This is optional if you want it for specific users, such as new preparers or maybe new processors or data entry employees. You can tailor the program to have this specifically for those users. You can either contact technical support and we'll show you how to do it, or you can just specify when we're doing your onboarding and we'll go ahead and put it on there for you. So just for security reasons, we'll make sure and we have that double verification. And then your federal tax withholdings for the client. Again, double verification, which is a nice tool to have if you have any new employees or if you just want to make sure that you're putting in the right information. All right, so we went ahead and put in that W-2. So let's say that John is done. He has his W-2 and he has his dependent. Now, if you notice, there's a lot more information that's populated here. Now we have the 8812, which is a child tax credit, and the 8867, which is a prepared checklist. Another nice tool is that no matter where you are in the return, you can be in any single form or general tab here. Doesn't matter where you are. It's always going to show the AGI for the client, the adjusted gross income, as well as their refund. And it's always going to have that showing here on the screen no matter where you are in the return. It's always going to be there on that form tree. Now, this return is done as far as inputting the information. Now what we need to do is make sure that it's ready to be transmitted. This verify button here is going to show you any and all errors or corrections that need to be made or addressed on the return. So we're going to go ahead and hit verify. Now we see here the first one that there's some client data missing, and that's our EFIN. Now this should auto-populate based on the EFIN that you guys provided us. Well, let's go ahead and plug one in here. All right, and then when we hit enter, it's going to automatically jump to the next error or the next verification that needs to be addressed. So we'll go ahead and hit enter again, and it's going to ask us the refund type, how they want to be paid. So this is going to say 1 for a check from the IRS, 2 for direct deposit, so on and so forth. So let's say that this client wants a check. Okay, so when we hit enter again, it's going to take us to our next error. And this is our 8867. This is our EIC checklist. So it's going to ask you to go ahead and ask the client these specific questions, and then based on your answer, The software will be able to tell you whether they qualify for the earned income credit. Okay. Now the software is going to automatically take you to the answer that would qualify them for the earned income credit. You are still encouraged to make sure that you do your due diligence and ask them the questions, and make sure that they do qualify. So let's go ahead and answer these questions. And all I'm doing here is just hitting enter to come back up to the verification screen, and then hitting enter again once I'm in the verification screen. But you guys can see just how easy it is to go ahead and clear out all of those errors. So this is going to ask me about the residency test. How did you determine that the child lived with the taxpayer for that year? And we'll say that they brought in some school records, like a report card showing the address. All right. So now that we're done with all of the verifications, if we hit verify again, okay, we have a couple of new issues that need to be addressed on the 8879. So since I went ahead and plugged in that he wants to have a check, now it's going to ask me for the preparer name, okay? And then it's going to go ahead and pull the information from your preparer database. Now, you have a couple choices here. Right now, demo would be the preparer name, and this information comes from your preparer database, which can be found in the database tab. Again, usually only available to administrators. And then you're going to come over here to paid preparers. And here you're going to see that we have added a preparer already. If you want to go ahead and edit that preparer, we can put in all their information. If they have an EIN, if they, you can go ahead and put in their PTIN there. Also, a nice feature here is if you have a signature pad, if you have one of our signature pads, you can have the preparer sign on their preparer profile, and they will never have to sign another return for the rest of that tax season. All you have to do is have them sign once, and their signature will automatically populate on the tax return. So let's go ahead and see what else it's going to ask us for. It's going to ask us for the PIN number. Okay, go ahead and auto-generate a PIN number, which we can do for you through the technical support team, or you can have a unique PIN number for each client, however you guys want to go ahead and do that. And when we verify again, you're going to see that now the return is verified successfully and it's ready to be transmitted or printed. Now, if we go ahead and queue the return, you're going to see it's going to ask us if we want to queue the federal return. Okay, when we go ahead and queue this return, you're going to see that when we come over here to our transmit key, if we want to transmit it over to the IRS, all right, you're going to see we have something queued. And if you want to see what returns you have queued, you can go ahead and hit filter, and it's going to show you that you have John's return, which has already been done. It is successfully verified and ready to send to the IRS. It will not allow you to transmit a return to the IRS unless it is fully verified. If it has not been fully verified, or if there's any errors on that return, it will not allow you to queue it for transmit. So that's a nice little feature there just for security, to make sure that everything goes through smoothly and there's no errors on there. Now if you notice on select returns, we now have 3. As before we had 2, now we have 3 returns that are showing in that work in progress screen. All right, and here are our 3 returns. So here's John, which we've already prepared. Okay, and I'll show you the date that it was created as well as the status. If you have that user status code, that will be displayed right here. I always suggest that we drag that over towards the front, just so you can have that right here. And as you can see, the display field here is customizable. So if you have a couple that you don't really use, you can kind of, send them, let's see what we can, e-file. We'll go ahead and just push this over to the side. And if you have anything else, you can order it however you like. Put it in whatever order you wish. And that's just a nice way of being able to sort the return, or just look them up and just have a general idea of what's on that return. All right, so with that, we'll go ahead and take a short 5-minute break. Give you guys a chance to soak up all this information. I'm going to go ahead and get started again at 11:17 on the dot. So please be back by 11:17 so we can go ahead and go over the next portion. We're going through this pretty quickly, so I think we'll definitely get through this within the 3-hour range. So let's take that short break. Let's call it 11:18. All right, so everybody be back by 11:18, and then we'll go ahead and get started again.